So in this video, I'm going to be talking all about verifying guests. So why is verifying guests so important? So you'll remember when we was going through the different online travel agents, there was some such as Airbnb who offer support in terms of claims, and there will be others such as booking.com, etc., that do not offer any protection in that sense. So you want to add in a process where you verify the guests yourselves and get them to agree to the terms of your stay and what you're going to provide to them. So we do this through a set of terms and conditions. So if you're going down the management route, you will speak to your managing agent, get to see a copy of their terms and conditions and agree with them what you want to set in place, but most likely just use their set of terms and conditions. If you're going down the self-managing route, you want to implement this into your process, so guests will sign your terms and conditions before their stay and provide a copy of their ID. The reason we want their ID and why it's so important is because a guest needs to basically give up their rights to actually occupy the property permanently, and through providing their ID, they prove that they have a permanent residence. So this avoids them basically having those troubles where they have the right to occupy the property full term. So with that in mind, I'm just going to go through our little slideshow on verifying guests. So like I said, it's a really important part of the process, and it helps you ensure your guests who your guests are, as well as ensures they treat the property really, really well during their stay. And this isn't any different from staying in a hotel. When you go to a hotel, you will sign and agree to their terms and conditions when you first book. It will kind of have it listed of like what you must provide, what they're providing to you in terms of like the cleaning, etc. So this all is laid out again to your guests. So it looks like a hire agreement like this. This is our old one because it's under our old company trading name. But in essence, it's the same. We just update it every so often along the way. So what we do basically is list in here all the important elements of their stay. So we are putting in things like the services you're providing. So explain like you supply the kind of services into the property, the heating, the electric, all these elements, how they're going to make payment. So if you're taking payment yourself, the agreement around payment. So like when they must make payment, what happens if they make a late payment, what's the policy for cancellation. So in here we put our cancellation policy. Again, you can have differentiating policies because on certain sites you might want to offer a reduced cancellation policy to incentivize people to book, but obviously just needs to try and match your terms and conditions. Arrivals and departures, so what time they can arrive from, what time they depart from, their obligations, your obligations, deposits, repayments, what the processes are if guest loses keys, what happens if they break rules. So what's the rules around like smoking parties, what happens if they breach these rules, and so on. So with that in mind, what do you put in your terms and conditions to cover the headaches that we talked about in the previous video? So you've got a headache of the guest takes their keys with them, drive across the other side of the country. What's the process for that? So you want to obviously think about, you might have to change your locks, you've got to obviously get new sets of keys cut, you've got another guest arriving shortly, so it's going to be charges for that. So you want to make sure that's in there. So what would be a fair amount to you to do that? Obviously the cost of someone changing the locks on the apartment, on the house, all needs to be considered. So we put £150 charge because you have to place all the locks, but it's entirely up to you what you do put in this instance. Taking a parking permit with them. If you've only got the one, you've got to try and get another one. We've had guests do this before, and it's trying to get them. So we do a £50 charge. Might cost you like £10 to replace it, but it's just the time. And the reason we put more is to try and stop them from doing it, really. If it's a larger charge, they're likely to remember to do it. Smoking in the property, what would you charge for that? Obviously, it's something that's going to struggle to get out the smell if you've got a guest arriving that day as well. What if the apartment's left in a mess? What they cause damage to the property? What if they break something? So we take certain things with a pinch of salt. If they break a glass, if they, obviously just damage like a saucepan, we're not going to be too worried because they're things that a bit wear and tear happens. Glasses obviously get dropped, they break, we don't worry about stuff like that. But if there's something larger, what's the process for that? If they damage the TV, if they take the TV. We've had guests who have stolen things before, unfortunately. Strangely did not take the TV, they took like the Hoover and they took a old travel cot. So it was frustrating that says the Hoover was actually on its last legs. We'd had it for 2.5 years, it needed replacing, so I was quite thankful that they took it. But what's the process if you're going to have guests who leave unless or take things? What if they want to have a late checkout? What's your process for there? You want to have that in your terms and conditions, so the fee that they're going to have. So you can basically message them a day before and ask if they want this. In terms of the process, if you're going to charge guests for any of this, is basically take a deposit before their stay. So we pre-authorize a card, we pre-authorize £200 on that card. Basically, it's like a damage deposit, and it can be for anything from losing the permit, losing keys, causing damage, leaving it in a mess, extra cleaning, etc. that is needed. So all these things can be considered, and that deposit protects it. You can take more. Some people take £500, some take £100. It's all about working out what amount you want to take, but putting these all into your terms and conditions is really, really important. I will share a copy of my terms and conditions with you, but you want to change it to suit your needs and your appetite for what you want to charge them. Again, going down the management route, speak to a management company, ask them what their processes are for all of this. You want to consider this, understand what they're going to be doing, how they deal with all these headaches, so you know you get the right management team for you. You also will want to take a copy of their ID, like I said. So this is important, like I said before, because guests have different rights to tenants, and by you seeing their ID and seeing the proof they've got a permanent residence elsewhere, so that the driving license, then you know that you are protecting yourself in that sense. If they do try and stay in the property, that's going to protect you from that. Often what I find as well is when we send out our terms and conditions, or even say we're taking a deposit, that deters people enough to cancel sometimes. And I'm happy if they cancel. Sometimes when people book, it's like, my terms and conditions, sign this, or we take a deposit of this amount, and sometimes they cancel straight away because they don't want to pay it. And I don't want guests in our property who aren't willing to pay it, because they're obviously looking to get away with a bit more. Again, if a guest argues that they don't want to do either of those, then again, we just explain that it's part of the process and we need to do that. Again, on Airbnb, even though you're protected by their insurances they have, you can still take these terms and conditions, but you just have to put it in your policies under your listing. So without that, you can't charge a deposit, and without or take the terms and conditions. So you just need to put it in there that these are the mandatory things that have to happen ahead of your stay, so sign terms and conditions and taking deposit. Other sites like Booking.com, Verbo, you can list it in there to say, this is how much I take. Booking.com, frustratingly, always says you have to take it in cash. No one really deals with cash too much these days. And we do have guests who take it out really, really nicely. They're like, we've taken the money out, how do we give it to you? Thankfully, they contact us about 5 days before. We say, no, we just take it over the phone by pre-authorizing the card. So this is what your payment systems are for that we went through previously. And deposits I've obviously already mentioned. So that's just a brief bit about the terms and conditions. Now I just want to touch on Power Team, and with a big focus on your cleaners. You want to get a cleaning team who really understands what you do. They are your eyes and ears of the property, and they are going to be seeing, first instance, what's happened, what's gone on, feedback to you, what the guest has been like. But how do you ensure that you've got evidence of a guest leaving the property as you provided it, so you know that you can basically charge them? Because when you go through sites like Booking.com, they ask for evidence. Booking.com won't ever do anything. We've had claims from them before, which is why we take deposits, because they just go, yeah, you could take a deposit. So that's the reason why. But if you go for things like Airbnb, if you're going through their claim process, they'll want evidence of how you provided the property to them. So we use our Power Team and our cleaners for this, and we do it simply by asking them to take a video of when they've done the clean and prepared the property, or if they've received the property in a bad condition back, they provide a video to us. So these are just some of the reasons of why it's so important, and they can help many headaches. They are your eyes and ears of the property, like I said. They're the first to the scene, and the guest, after a guest left, they can provide feedback to their stay. So we've had guests who left loads of washing to do, loads of dirty dishes and that, so we can feed that back to guests, especially on sites where you can provide feedback yourself, or if they smell of smoke, if they've not kept the property clean, have had parties. This is always spotted straight away as soon as the cleaners go in. It saves you having to go there yourself to check on it. They can carry out small parts of maintenance if things needed, like light bulbs needing changing, small things that are within their needs. So if they spot things, having an agreement with them that, could you have this, what's the process for you to manage that for us, and what would you charge to deal with little bits of maintenance? By cleaning it regularly, they obviously keep it in a really good condition, meaning you rarely have to go there apart from your general inspections. And if you want to, they can do extra facilities. Again, find the right team who understand service accommodation. It's not like normal commercial cleaning. It's obviously more reactive, and you can get them to be part of your power team to offer that incentive. So we offer obviously teas and coffees. We offer biscuits. If you want to put like a welcome gift, a welcome basket, if you want to provide some food upon arrival through different companies, then they could be part of this, and you can pay them for that service to do that. So obviously just realizing that the benefit of that and making sure you're kind of making an agreement between them and paying them for that extra work that's going to add the value to the guests as well. So, like I said before, how can you ensure it's been cleaned effectively, and how can you ensure that it's been left properly by your guests? So, you'll need a checklist for the cleaners to work through, and to tell them exactly what needs to be done. So, firstly, just showing them how to set up the property is really, really important. Showing them pictures, and basically just showing the process of what they do. So most cleaners will have their own checklist they work through, and it's just seeing a copy of this. You don't necessarily always need to see it, just saying how they work through the property. So what sort of stand they do, like changing bins, taking the rubbish out, cleaning the bathrooms, how they disinfect, etc., especially with COVID, everything that's been going on there. Obviously, like I said before you actually work with them, take the time to work out what the best way to clean a property is. So go in there and think of effectively the best way to flow around the property and how you're going to move through it, because you want to consider the best use of their time. Some cleaners will be paying per hour, and just agreeing again whether it's a set fixed fee, or if they're paying per hour, what's the maximum amount of time spent, or if there's extra time. Because again, if there is a particularly bad guest, you might have to spend like 3-4 hours rather than 2 hours cleaning the property. So it's just taking this into account. They're often obviously doing like deep cleans in terms of carpets, etc. So it's just factoring all that in to the property to ensure it's kept in a good condition. If you have to go through that process, you can feedback to them. They'll have experience in terms of the quickest ways to go around, but just understand yourself of what might be a quick way to go through the property so it's cleaned effectively. Provide as much information as possible, so layout, pictures, how it should be set up so they can mirror it, because you want them to set up the property how it looks online in the pictures. You don't want it to be confusion where like you've got certain pillows laid out in certain ways in terms of staging, and something they're in a different room, or they're not laid out nicely, or towels aren't on the bed nicely, so that experience is different to what they're expecting, so it doesn't feel the same when they come in. And discuss, like I said before, the additional costs of services being provided to them, so basically you know what it's going to cost you going forward. So like for instance, we have the travel costs in our storage, we ask them to put it into the property. Might be a charge if it's a separate day to go out and do this, and I guess they've already set up the property, and it's a couple of days in between. So just understanding these things and what you're charging for that. If a guest checks out late, how that impacts you, because it might be the clean team has to hang around, there's charges for that, and again that's the reason you charge the guests as well. Asking to have a maintenance team if they're the one they work with, or whether they'll recommend one, because otherwise you can obviously get that as part of your team, because maintenance team is so important as well, the quick turnarounds. Going down the rent-to-rent route, then obviously you can go to the letting agent, but this can sometimes take time because the letting agent has to go to the landlord, get their approval if it's a bigger bit of maintenance. So for smaller things, you might just want to do it yourself. And again, where we've gone direct to landlord, sometimes we have an agreement where the first £50, etc., we cover. So it means a small little bit of maintenance, we can just replace, get done, and move on rather than having to wait for approval. And ensure you leave enough time between checkouts and check-ins. So I'd say the minimum, if you have multiple properties, is 11 till 3. We actually do 10 till 3 now. So because of COVID, we left a bigger gap to air the property for longer. But if you've got multiple properties, you need to ensure there's enough time to get around them. So if we have 9 properties, if we have all those need to be cleaned in one day, between 10 and 3 is still a very tight gap. So there needs multiple people within the team to do those cleans, because each person probably do 2 properties in one day. So it's just factoring that into the day, so they've got enough time. And if a guest starts checking early, checking with the team and making sure it's all agreed beforehand. So it's just an example of checklist. Again, we'll provide this to them, and this just talks to them about what they must do as they go through, and they can tick it so it's all effectively cleaned in each room. And this is just a process they would look at to keep for us when the clean is needed, clean the apartment after stay, take a video, provide an evidence, and then upload it into Dropbox or send it on WhatsApp is what the way we do it now. So we just send it on WhatsApp to us. So, like I mentioned before, one really, really useful thing they do is protect yourself against guests claiming that the property wasn't given to them that way. So if you ever get who damages something, how do you prove that to them? And the way we do that is videos before and videos afterwards. So what happens is the cleaner comes in, and they take a video of how the guest left it. Excuse the heavy breathing by the cleaner. I think she was a bit worn out at the time. This is one of our old clean teams. We don't actually work with these anymore, but they've just took a quick video of the property. So this is how the guests leave. As you see, they do just leave things all around, but get a general look of one of our properties of how the guests leave it. You see, it's generally not too bad. Obviously, you can have bedding, everything thrown around, but not too bad going through. Random things obviously hanging around, but again, this is quite a clean guest. It's the reason they just take this. Just if there was any damage, they'd point out like, oh, this chair's broken or this is broken. So if you have a claim, you've got evidence to them. And then once they have finished the clean, again, great thing as well, when they go around, they'll point out things, get them to point out things to you that do need replacing. Them, like the kettle's a bit damaged, or the kettle's getting old, or these saucepans are getting really rusty. So you can get one to change straight away because they're straight in rather than the guests complaining about the condition. Then what we get them to do, once they've done the clean, another quick video, just a couple minute walk around. So you've got proof of this is how we left it, all nice and tidy. So the guests can see, basically, not the guest see. So if the guest does complain, oh no, I didn't break that, it wasn't left in this way, you've got evidence that yes, it was. This is a video. What we actually do now is we get our cleaners to say the date on the videos. They go Monday the 1st of January, blah blah blah, clean in this apartment, and then this basically means we've got evidence that it was left this way. And they go through every cupboard and every drawer. So that was just, I've not gone through the whole video just to save time. But yeah, we get them to open up drawers, get them to open up the cupboards so you can see the plates are all clean. So it's everything. So basically guests couldn't moan, especially if they were saying like, oh, it's not been kept clean. We have evidence it has. Obviously there might be little things that you can't quite see in the video. So you take it with a little pinch of salt, but it's mainly protect ourselves. If there has been damage caused by a guest, we've got evidence to go. No, look, you can clearly see it was in working condition. Everything was nice when you did previously arrive. And then this is how you left it afterwards as well. On to maintenance, I'm going to do this in a separate video, so I will leave it there.